A picture of you and Papa Lou and my mom. I don't know what the occasion was. Do you remember the occasion for that picture?
I think somebody got mitzvah.
So let's start with how you met Papa Lou, how old you were and where you were.
My sister got scarlet fever, Gloria, and we had to leave the house, otherwise she had to go to the hospital and my mother wouldn't let her go. So we all had to go stay with my grandmother. And in those days your social life was built by groups, a club, Jewish clubs mostly, for us. And the Jewish club that we went to, being that my grandmother's was different than the one we went to, because we lived quite a way in Eaton Park. So we had to go to the club near my grandmother's because we were living there. And that's where we met my uncle, Papa Lou.
So what did you think when you first saw him?
He was just another boy with a group going. We used to go dancing every Sunday.
What kind of dancing?
Modern dancing right now, ballroom dancing. Grandpa was a very good dancer.
So when did it change, and when did you think he was special and not just another boy at the club?
After we'd met about 6 or 7 times, I thought he was quite charming.
And so what happened? Did you have to go back away from his club, or were you still close enough to visit?
No, actually, when we went back home, we went to the club near us and he came there. It was about as far as, say from here to Beth.
Oh, that's not too far.
It wasn't too far.
So what happened next when you decided he was charming?
When you what?
Once you decided he was charming, what happened?
We kept going out every Sunday, then we went out every Saturday as well. And then he would start coming over every Tuesday. So we were seeing each other 3 or 4 times a week.
And what was he doing at the time?
He was working for his father in the peanuts. They had grocery stores and they sold peanuts.
And what did your parents think of Papa Lou?
Well, going back to a very odd story, they thought he was a nice young man, but it came out later that when Grandma's father was working, they call it picture faking business. When Lou's father came to England, everybody used to take in a young girl or boy to stay with them for nothing, to give them a chance to get on their feet. So Grandma and Grandpa, my mother and father, took in young boys so they could go to temple and pray and all those things. And the people he stayed with was my grandmother, my mother's mother and father. It so happens it came out later. So that he used to read these love letters to my grandmother from all over the world. My grandfather was a traveller. And when they found out who we were seeing each other, that it was, from my grandmother and grandfather. So they thought that was marvellous because he loved my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
So that's...
I wonder where the love letters are.
I don't know. But she couldn't read or write, so he had to read and write all the letters.
So how long was it before you got engaged?
Grandpa and I,
Mm-hmm.
We never actually got formally engaged because the war broke out.
And so what happened? Did you just get married?
We just got married.
What was your wedding like?
There was about 20 people in the living room, in a room, in an apartment. And the rabbi brought the, for over the
The
head.
huppah? Or
The huppah.
okay.
And we got married. And that morning, my mother and I got up. Well, the night before, about 11 o'clock at night, there was a knock at the door. And my cousins came from Boston. There was about 4 or 6 of them for the wedding. So we only had an apartment, so I slept with my Aunt Sadie, and my mother and father slept with someone else, and we gave these rooms to my cousins from Boston. So we got up about 5 o'clock in the morning and we made a full chicken dinner. We served it at 1 o'clock, the wedding was at 3. Then we cleaned up and we had the wedding.
Wow. That's a really nice story. And so you had the wedding and you lived in New York, and then how long was it before my mom came around?
We were married in August and she was born a year the following March. I couldn't get pregnant, I was very unhappy. But then it happened.
And then how long after did Sandy come along?
13 months.
So you didn't have any trouble after that?
What?
You didn't have any trouble after
No.
having them along? And what was life like with 2 babies under?
It was very hard. You lived in an apartment, so everything you did, you took them to the park, you took them outside. And it was very hard now, just 4 months really that you were pregnant. Looking back, it was really hard work.
And what was Papa Lou doing then? Was he still at the peanut store?
Papa Lou then was selling pinball machines. She found a placement for a pinball machine, and you install it, and then you've got so much for the placement. And he was doing very well at it. And then LaGuardia came along and banned the pinball machine. So in one weekend we were rejoicing how much money he'd made, and the same weekend we were out of work. But he found something else.
What did he do next?
He actually sold peanuts. We started our own little business. We took little packages and filled them with nuts and pinned them on a cardboard. And it was a quarter in those days. And then Lou went around selling placements and put this cardboard up, say it had 24 on. In those days they were for like a dime. So you would put them in the store, and then every 3 days you'd go around and they would pay you for what was gone. So we had no investment, it was encouraging to make extra money.
Yeah.
So we did that.
And then I remember hearing about a chicken farm or something.
Then we got interested in chicken farm. That was work. And when we'd been in the chicken farm about 2 months, Lou and Jerry had an automobile accident. And Grandpa ended up in the hospital. And I had just had his mother. She was a few weeks old. And I had to get up and start feeding the chickens because she would die. So Lou and Jerry owned the farm between them. And Jerry was busy working to pay for the feed for the chickens. It was so expensive, with no idea. To keep these chickens in feed was a full-time job.
So how long did the chicken business last?
What?
How long did you last in the chicken business before you did something else?
Oh, it was a year. You had to bring the chickens to growth before you could kill them. otherwise you lost all the money. So you had to, whether you liked it or not, you had to bring the chickens from being a little teeny egg to being a full-grown chicken before you could sell them. And that takes 13 weeks. So we did that 3 times, we turned them over. It seemed like forever.
Well, I think we'll wrap up for today, but this was really informative, and I'll come back. I know that Nick is anxious for me to